I got him at gunpoint. They're pulling them out.
911. Advise ready for camp.
Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
And I'm Chuck.
You feeling all right, dog?
I'm feeling, yeah. I'm going to have round 3 in probably an hour and 15, an hour and 20.
Yeah, there's a stomach bug for sure going around. Plus, you add to that, we were actually just talking about this before we hit the record button. But if you get into military service, I won't use the word I used previously because, I don't want to offend the 2 Marines I have on the show. I said soldiering earlier, and Chuck's like, hey. But if you get into military service, you get into police work, you get into these kinds of stressful situations, stressful jobs where you deal with man's inhumanity to man for a career. Stomach problems are just part and parcel. Like,
yeah,
it's just going to happen.
You get ulcers, high blood pressure.
Yeah.
You get
indigestion, acid reflux. Freaking colitis, freaking diarrhea. Dude, I told you one of the first indicators that I was seriously having mad stomach problems that started to lead up to my retirement was the night I was sitting in the watch commander's office eating a chicken Caesar salad on graveyard shift at 2 a.m. And I got dizzy after eating a chicken. Who the fuck gets dizzy eating a Caesar salad? Right. But I went to the doctor and she's like, yeah, that's a stress response. That's like you're pre-ulcerous. Yeah. Like we need, she did some tests. She's like, your liver functions are shitty. I'm like, well, that's all the alcohol, doc.
Yeah. I'm just high functioning alcoholic.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a drunk. Demon. Alcoholics go to meetings.
Yeah. I have to drown out the demons somehow. Right. And they look at you like you're fucking crazy.
Exactly. But I'm excited because Chuck got us not only another author, but a fellow devil dog. So Chuck's very excited too. So Chuck, tell us who you've got this week.
All right. Well, I have Chris here. He's an author. He's a Marine. He's a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps. I don't know. Are you current, Chris, in the Marine Corps? Or?
Nope. Medically, they kicked me out medically in 2015. So,
yeah, we were chatting about this before you jumped in, actually. So,
I'll give you guys a quick rundown for the audience. He has a book out right now, and I'll let him plug that later. But it's about his journeys in the military. And
what's it called?
He was Terror to Triumph.
No. Oh, I was going to ask Chris, what's it called?
Sorry. So basically, I'll read it to the audience exactly what he wrote to me because I think it's great. Cool. You're basically taking a journey through the eyes of a Marine scout sniper as he unveils the horrors of war through the mean streets of Ramadi, Iraq in 2005. We lost a couple fellow Marines, and I'm going to leave it at that because the rest is very captivating, and I believe he should tell it.
But I want to back up, Chris. Shouldn't that read through the eye of a scout sniper?
It could. I mean,
admittedly, you spent a lot of time with one eye closed.
Yes, a lot of one eyes, but thankfully, thankfully I could switch eyes, so that made it a little easier at 2 a.m. looking through a green scope. So,
wow. Yeah, one of our friends who's been on the show a couple times, but also he's Marine, and then he was he is a Marine, and then he's retired LAPD sniper, and he calls it weaponized math.
the fancy trig on the fly, and like I barely got through college algebra, but somehow I can go, that guy's this tall, he's this far away, like doing all these like little numbers in my head, and
right.
But put me in the college classroom, I'm like, 2 + 2 is.
I couldn't probably do that kind of math in a classroom setting, but you give me a rifle and explain to me why I need to do it to kill someone, and that makes much more sense.
You have to calculate windage and fucking all this other craziness, and then you have to
and the rotation of the Earth, bro.
The Coriolis effect.
That is the one that killed me when I was very young copper, and I was talking to really hardcore snipers and stuff, and they're talking about long shots and these really long distance shots and the Coriolis and the rotate. And I was like, wait, I'm sorry, you have to take into account what now?
Yeah. Like the humidity, the wind, how much the bullet's going to like, it's like, I'm not a ballistic expert. It's like,
well, you are now.
Yeah. It's so much fun.
So why don't you tell us kind of how you ended your journey to this point so far? I got a little bit of it, as we were chatting before Chuck joined us, but why don't you share with the audience kind of your journey to the Marine Corps, through the Marine Corps, and then to where you are now?
Awesome, for sure. First and foremost, thank you guys so much for having me on here. It's kind of been unreal ever since the book came out in October of last year. It's been just a blur. But I started out, doing the first 4 years in beautiful, Hawaii, and which obviously back then nothing was going on in the early 90s.
Right.
Got out, got married, came to Houston, Texas, went from beautiful beaches to the waters of Galveston. And I'm like, this is not a beach. I'm not going in that water. I don't want to come out glowing.
Sounds like the LA River.
Yep. I was like, I'm going back to Hawaii where the ocean's actually, you can actually go into the water and not see like dead fish floating by. Right. But
Jesus.
It ended up joining DPS or Texas State Trooper in 2003. And they put me up in a little town in Lufkin, Texas, which is northeast, tiny, tiny little town. Now you drive through it and it's a place that just like anywhere, there's no more small town anything. They've got like tons of street lights. There's like malls, car dealerships. I mean, things that were not there back in 2003 are just packed through the whole county.
Wow. Development.
Yeah. And back then it was a dry county. So as law enforcement goes, there was the perfect road that led to the one liquor store that right at the county line. You're just like, okay, you're going to go there. You're going to come back. Hopefully you don't crash, but chances are I'm going to get you and whatever.
So now to the listeners, explain, because there are probably a lot of listeners that don't understand how a dry county works. And honestly, I understand it, but I've never had somebody who worked in law enforcement in a dry county. So please explain, because the idea of working law enforcement in a dry county is fascinating to me.
And basically how I remember it is basically they do not. You can buy like beer and things like that at restaurants, but they do not sell any kind of liquor, beer, any of that stuff,
right?
In any of the grocery stores. So you're going to make that drive. You're either going to stock up and pre-plan and I guess do the responsible thing, or you're going to do what most people did. And I'll plead the fifth just so I don't get myself in trouble. But we'll party and then they'll jump on that road and drive the 30 minutes down this dark, desolate 2-lane road to the county line to buy the beer, buy the liquor, buy everything else, load it back into their car and drive back. As a trooper.
Now, what are the legalities of that?
It's not, and that's the weird thing is it's not like bootlegging per se, because you're taking it from one county to another, but it's also, there's still like a certain amount. You're not gonna, like if one guy's in a truck and you pull him over and he's got like the whole bed of the truck is packed full of cases of beer. It's like, okay.
It's the difference between when you're possessing dope for personal use versus possessing dope in a quantity that could make you a distributor or a salesperson.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And
Jesus.
So, yeah. It was a mess, but it was leading to a lot of, but now there's so much buildup out there. It's not as dark and desolate, things like that. But the wrecks and things like that are still huge. I mean, most of them are single vehicle, but there is where they cross the yellow lines, go beak to beak, things like that. Or you get the phone calls from another county saying, hey, this person's family lives in that area. You need to go knock on the door and let the family know their loved one's not coming back. And I did, almost 18 years in the Marine Corps. And I think there's a lot of tough times, but that is some of the worst gut-wrenching feeling where you pull into that driveway and you're like, oh, damn. Like, you don't want to get out of the car. You know what's going to happen. It's just horrible. So you
think about the people in the Marine Corps or the people, any military member who has to drive to the home on base to make notification to the wife or that their husband is not coming home. Like, not many people in the military have to do that job. right? That's a very specific job that, especially if you're deployed, they're not flying you home to make the notification.
Yeah, no, not at all.
So that is a very unique thing that law enforcement has to do on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And it is really part and parcel with the job. If you work the road in any capacity, at some point you're going to have to, multiple times in your career, go and inform people that the person they love is not coming home ever again.
Yep. And the worst part is, and not saying one person dying on a certain day is not the, worse than the other, but when it always seemed to occur right on the holidays. Like it never failed. And the one, not the straw that broke the camel's back per se, but, hearing about the guys over there in Iraq during the initial pushback, you hear a bunch of buddies coming back in bags, things like that. And I'm like, oh, and I'm very calloused, I guess, when it comes to that. I'm just like, oh yeah, they're coming back in bags. Most people are like, man, someone's dead. Like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, if you let every little piece bother you to that degree, I was like, you'll die. You're not going to make it 2 years, let alone, you
let it eat you alive, and you can't do that.
You have to compartmentalize
somehow and put up walls.
And I'll never forget it. And I think this was like back to back, and whatever you believe in, like what we were talking about earlier, Tom, religious, not religious, but it's like, okay, God, this is a test. On Thanksgiving Day, or the day before Thanksgiving, we get a call. We're like, hey, hit and run, cars upside down. There's a wreck in this big intersection. We're like, okay, yeah, right, whatever. Here we go work another wreck. Who gives a shit? And we go up there, and the car's like 50% engulfed, things like that. And we're like, oh, the firefighters that are putting it out, and we're like, oh man. And sure enough, it was and thankfully we caught the guy, and he, was a typical, third or fourth DWI. He's just, one of those guys who just in and out of the system, got the right lawyers. Well, he ended up hitting, he was so intoxicated, didn't even know what he was doing, plowed through the intersection, T-boned this grandmother who was on her way home from the store with a back of her car was packed full of groceries.
Of course.
For Thanksgiving. The car caught on fire. She died. She was killed. You get to the hospital after, because you have to take the guy because his head's split open and he's bleeding from the ear, probably because of the car accident. They're not saying that he wasn't adjusted, made sure his seatbelt was nice and tight. After we caught him, he ran through, some apartments, things like that. And we're on our way to the jail. And I remember he's just, in and out of consciousness. So I'm keeping him awake, like, hey, no, you need to stay awake. Just in case he's concussed or whatever. I don't need that on top of everything else. And I was like, you killed a mom who was on her way home doing nothing wrong but going to the grocery store to buy a turkey for her kids. I was like, that, right? And he's like, yeah. He's like, so I guess I'll probably be in jail for 6 months, huh? And I'm like, and I really wanted to pull the car over and and turn the video footage off and things like that and deal with that guy. But I'm like, you know what? I was like, so thankfully I fought the urge. If that was in Iraq and it was, someone that we POW or something like that, it'd probably be a different story. But so we got that one done. And I remember going home and telling my wife, I'm like, God. And she's like, do you want to do anything? I'm like, no, I just want to be left alone. And I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody, don't want to do anything. And that really kind of started the snowball of the isolating. The second one, literally Christmas Eve, the one we were kind of talking about earlier, Tom, we get a phone call. They're like, hey, go do a death notification. Kids coming back from college, driving home, dark road, crossed over, went beak to beak with an 18-wheeler. After she finished finals, 3 counties over from where she was, she died instantly. Thank God.
Yeah. The lug nut rule, man.
Yeah. And she just fell asleep finals, wanted to get it all done before Christmas. vacation. I remember we pulled into this driveway, and there was probably like the movie Home Alone, where he has like all those like little things dancing in the window.
God.
I mean, just packed.
Like the whole family's over.
People were parked on the road, driveway, the yard, the windows. Like it looks like a frat party, and we're like, damn, like okay, is this the right address? You know, like what's going on? And it instantly hit us. We're like, oh my God, this is a homecoming thing, surprise party. You know, she's coming home from college. It turns out it was her senior year of college, so she was basically done coming home. And you know, you're walking up, and people know, like cops aren't on your doorstep at 2 a.m.
Right
on a Saturday because they wanted like, hey, you know, give me some food or give me a drink. You know, they know.
It's that thing we were talking about when the uniforms show up and you're on base housing and they knock on your door in full dress uniform and your husband's deployed or your wife is deployed. You know it's not good. Yeah, they're not there just to shoot the shit or have a party. And before we could even knock, you know, the dad opens the door. The mom looks at us. Instantly, you could tell she knew, but it was just a matter of getting the formality of it. And I'm like, I kind of just took that deep breath. I was the senior guy, had a brand new trooper who literally just graduated with me. And I was like, you know, I'll do it. That way you have to learn. I was like, this is going to be part of the job. And as soon as I said it, the mom collapsed. The whole family is like standing there. The music stops instantly. And you've got God. 40 eyes like staring right at you as you're saying these words. And you're like, yeah, that feels good. Yeah. One of the best feelings ever, you know, and you start backing away and I'm just like, here's the information where your daughter is, you know, if we can do anything for you, let us know, you know, and you just kind of, there's nothing to say. I mean, it's the most powerless, helpless fucking, I remember we had a kid, I didn't have to make death notification, but he had, I told the story a little bit, but he got hit by a police car on a motorcycle, on a dirt bike, because he was riding at 2 a.m. without a headlight. And the police car was rolling code 3 to a fire. The kid was laying there injured, just wrecked. I mean, he was destroyed physically and he's screaming for his mother. And I remember when I knocked on his dad's door at 2:30 in the morning, I said, you know, this is what happened. He's alive. He's going to the hospital, critical condition. You may want to let your wife know. I don't know if your wife lives here with you, but he's asking for his mother. And the dad looks at me and goes, his mom died 2 years ago. Yeah. And to know that this 17-year-old boy was screaming for his mom, knowing that he knew that she had died 2 years ago, it just destroyed me. Yeah, it's gut wrenching. And there's no, there's nothing someone's going to tell you like, oh, it's, you know, it's part of your, you know, you can say, oh, it's part of your job. It's part of the thing. It gets easier. Yeah, it gets easier. It'll pass with time, but you know, all that stuff. And it gets easier with drinking. Yeah, that's for sure. And which is not the right way. I'll say that, but it is a quick fix. And I don't know how my liver is like functioning now, especially after the deployments. And you know, after that one notification, I was like, you know what? I was like, told my wife, I was like, I need to go back. I was like, I've got a lot of friends coming back in bags, a lot of stuff going on. I said, you know what? I'm ready to go back in. Let's go. And she's like, okay, you know what? But if you go back in, you know, stay till retirement. I was like, that's fine. That's easy. And so I made the mistake of going to the recruiter's office and I said, don't care the job, don't care the location. Recruiter's wet dream. He's like, oh, right. He just started foaming at the mouth. 29 palms. Freaking recruiter Woody. Like, yep. If there's such thing as a recruiter boner, that was it. Like,
do you like food and do you like tropical climates? I mean, in the fucking desert, because you're going to be a cook.
You enjoy humidity,
California.
That's for sure. And I said, you know, I want to go back to infantry, but you know, if whatever. And he's like, okay. He's like, infantry. That's
I can give you wet hot or I can give you dry hot.
Yeah. And he's like, and this is 04, you know, still a lot of the deployments, a lot of stuff going on. Back when, like Corporal Dunham, the naval ship over.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That was the unit that I went to, was the unit he was part of. And they're like 29 Palms, California. And I'm like, where's 29 Palms? Like, where is that? And the recruiter's like, you see this little dot right here on a map? And I'm like, yeah, okay. He's like, that's where you're going. And I'm
imagine
like,
if California
desert.
had an asshole.
Yes.
Well, no, that's the taint. The asshole is Camp Wilson.
That's probably
yes.
true too.
Camp Wilson.
Wilson is the
That's fair.
Quonset Hut heaven.
fucking place. Jesus Christ.
We were there.
It is horrible.
7 years in that
Oh,
place.
7?
My
Who
wife
did
and I,
you piss off?
I kept volunteering.
Oh,
Like, I
Wow.
I
that was
didn't
your
learn
first
that
mistake.
that valuable. Do not volunteer for shit.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm going to volunteer. Watch this.
Yeah. All of our
And-
listeners, Matt knows. They know Matt says Navy stands for never again volunteer yourself.
Yes, and they should like put that next to the
Right.
the Marine base. And ironically, 29 Palms was deemed uninhabitable by the Army. They're like, no one should live out there. Perfect for training. But the Marines are like, you know what? Let's go.
Well, that was the thing. The Marines were like, "Fuck you, we could do it."
Yeah, watch this.
Well, you Army are a bunch of pussies.
They when I was out in 29 Palms for Camp Wilson, we did well, how many months did we do up there? Like 4 or 5. And they had finally put in a Carl's Jr. near the front part of the base.
Yeah, by the
And you guys were all excited.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we
And
can get
we're
a
like,
Western bacon
fuck,
cheeseburger.
this place has a fucking Carl's, because we were gonna be stuck getting our gear in our vehicle
Yeah.
and tracks for like the first week, and then we're gonna push out to Wilson for the remainder. And so we got fucked up and drunk at the NCO club, and then the
Gator
bowling
Bombs.
alley because the non-NCOs such as myself, who was a dude at the time, we went and drank at the or tried to at the bowling alley, but they all knew. They're like, no, you're not gonna fucking drink, but your NCOs are gonna get fucked up. And then carried one of our corporals back, who was got really fucked up. And then the next day we were able to go to the pool. They put this badass
That should be.
pool
Should
in.
that be in
Outdoor by
quotation
the-
fingers?
by the theater,
And
the outdoor one.
Yeah, and we got to spend like an hour at the pool, and then we got to come back and go through all of our fucking gear, and then
Ugh.
leave. And
God, that place.
and then we
was-
went out to fucking Wilson, and it, like, I swear that place is hell. Like we had cell phones, but we had like the flip phones at the time.
Yeah.
And it would say you had
With, like,
cell
the
service,
Razor?
and you're like, yeah, Razor, the fucking Switch, or whatever, fucking Juke. And I was out there and I was like, oh fuck, this place has service? Oh, fucking can't be that bad. And I'm like, oh, what, full bars. So I tried to
God.
use it. It's like deet, deet, deet. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, they fucking
Yeah.
put a jammer on that shit.
Phantom fucking service.
No, they
And
put a jam. I
dude, that-
guarantee you, they put a jammer on it.
Of course. I mean,
Yeah.
and there was an airfield where like the pilots and shit would land, which they had it real nice. And then tankers, we were right next to tankers because we were tracks, and tankers would fuck off all day. And there's a lot of shenanigans that happened there because we fucked up a lot. And then we spent a lot of time out. The best time we had was during that FX the couple of FXs that we did with live fire maneuvers. And it was like a 24, 48 hour period where it was just like a live simulation battle. And that was pretty cool. But
Range
it was hot
400.
as fuck. Yeah. And you had like one MRE a day. And one of our guys stole, I wouldn't say stole, he tactically acquired from the chow hall fucking like 4 MRE cakes, like family sized cakes. Yeah.
Oh,
That was
God.
cool.
Well, if I let you two Marines freaking jaw jack the whole time, we'd never get to the story. So, Chris, please,
Yeah.
the floor is yours, man. What is your story?
Oh man, I was thinking about this before coming on, and I was like, God, there's a few experiences in Iraq, a few experiences in Afghanistan that kind of, paved the way for me to be where I am, now. And they're not long stories, but they're definitely in the book because they were definitely highlights. As a scout sniper in Ramadi, it's just like any other city. It's a hellhole. Buildings are on top of each other. Some are still there, some are rubble. It's just basically what you would think of as this city, war-torn city. And for people who have been to those places, or even been to the better places in the U.S., as law enforcement, you're like, God, this place is a shithole. This place is horrible. We were going down this one of the main roads. We were about to go into this one house, and it was going to be abandoned. The whole back half of it was blown off, and we're like, God, I hope it doesn't rain. Of course, it's the rainy season. It smells like low tide. There's trash, dead dogs, IEDs everywhere, like all over the streets. And I'm like, God, I really hope it doesn't rain. And for a long time, I was like, God, I hope I don't get blown up. But, that becomes like, if it happens, it happens. Hopefully it happens quick. That's the only way I could really get through, the first month, because as we were coming into the country, and they named a cafeteria for this guy, 2 weeks after we land, we're getting ready to transition, walking to the chow hall. They stop to smoke. I keep walking. You hear the whoosh of a rocket coming over. No incoming siren like they're supposed to. You hear this big loud explosion. And you're like, okay, whatever. They're shooting counter, battery, whatever, doesn't matter. And we go back toward where we left the other guys just to make sure. Oh man, they should have caught up by now. The rocket hit right where those guys stopped to smoke, took out 6 of them like a week into the thing, killed 6 of them instantly. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, if I would have stopped to smoke and not made that decision, I'll smoke when I come back.
Fuck. I'm
like, oh. So, and all that's left, just a paint mist up against the Jersey barrier where they were leaning up against. The rocket hit right next to them. Hopefully they didn't even hear it coming, and it happened so quick. But there were some guys who were really hurt and messed up, and they later named the chow hall after this guy because he was a little fat kid that just loved to go eat. Like if he could eat every single, like for 5 minutes a day, that dude was like, oh, let's go to the chow hall. Let's go to so we just called them a lunchbox in the
lunchbox. I was gonna say Cookie Monster lunchbox. It's got to be something like that.
And they put his name on a plaque right above the door leading into the chow hall, which we thought, oh, that's cool, but it's like, fuck, he died 2 weeks into this deployment. What kind of hell is this really going to be? So we're going down south to this abandoned building, and there must, not very religious, but a lot of people say you must have had a guardian angel on your shoulder. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. But they drop us off. We stack up against the gate. I'm the point guy, so I'm like, just because I wanted to be really, I'm like, you guys stay here. I'll go over the wall. So I'm going up over the wall with like no Kevlar, no flak jacket, no anything, because I'm trying to clear this building so we can come through the other guys can come through the gate. And you creep up there and it's all dark. It's like Nightmare on Elm Street. The house is tucked away
right
back in the trees, and you're like, oh shit, like, oh, please don't shoot, please don't shoot. But got over the wall, all clear.
You're like, this is fucked up. Also, I have to do it.
Yeah, and I'm on the other side of the wall. Like, I'm by myself. Everyone else is on the other side of the wall. So it's going to take them a minute. And here I got the 9mm military issue that might shoot, might not. And damn sure probably not going to go straight. Yeah, the old Beretta.
I love Berettas. I still own mine.
The good ones you can buy and you take care of are nice. The ones that have been dropped 50 times and kicked down the road a bunch of times are like, well, if I aim that way, it'll shoot this way, kind of thing.
A little Kentucky windage.
Little Kentucky wind for sure. And the courtyard is all clear. It's creepy. The wind starts blowing as soon as we get there. It's calm as can be. As soon as we stop the trucks, the wind like picks up like hurricane force. You're like, okay, that's a sign. We don't need to be here, but you know what? That's what we get paid the big bucks for.
The medium bucks. Come on, let's be fair.
We search the metal gate, make sure it's not booby trapped, opens up, they all come running in and the trucks drive away. Well, during that time, they've got like this little, we call it a mushroom on a stick thing, but it jams all the electronic devices. Like it can't be, if someone's there with a trigger, they can't blow a device. Right. And as soon as they pull away, we're setting up security. Me and the other guy throw our helmet off, drop our flak. We're like, hell with this. We need to get this quiet. We need to set up all these countermeasures. We start walking back toward the gate, and like literally we're probably 25 yards from the gate. Also, you see a bright flash, loud explosion, and me and him get blown back, probably get the 25 yards back up into the building. We're like, whoa, rocks and shit are coming down on top of us. We're like, oh, shaking it off, trying to clear the cobwebs. And we're like, what the fuck? And later found out where we were all stacked up. there was a anti-tank mine buried in the dirt where and the only reason it didn't go off is because those vehicles were there jamming the signal. So as soon as they pulled away, boom, it went off. And I'm just like,
yeah. And tanks are a lot bigger and hardier than people.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
Oh, it would have been a pig miss. Like we would have got spray painted all over the walls. Like
you'd have been nothing.
Were you in the non-up armored Humvees, just the regular?
We had the up armor.
Okay.
And that's how we like would insert and extract. And we were, riding in this Humvee, nothing over the top of us. We're like, well, you know what? Like, hopefully this works out.
Yeah. Cross your fingers, bitches.
and what I didn't know is the guy who I got blown back into, he went inside to talk to the other team, and I waited outside in case someone tried to jump the wall or whatever. He came back about 10 minutes later, and he's told me, he's like, you looked at me, you're glossy-eyed, like there's nothing going on. And I'm like, did you hear those guys talking in that big explosion? And he's like, 10 minutes ago? I was like, no, like literally like 30 seconds ago, I just heard him talking. He's like, oh, medevac, like,
right.
come and get this dude. Like he's not fucked up. I mean, he's not like bleeding or anything, but he needs to get back on base. And so we go back to base, and the corpsman's like, oh, we heard what happened. What's going on? Oh, I feel great. Just like what we talked about. No one wants to be pulled off the mission. Right. I said, I feel great. And I was like, I got a small little headache, but, give me some Motrin, little 800 milligram Skittles.
Right.
And I'll be good. And the doc's looking at the other guys, and they're like shaking their head. No, I was like, just give me the 800 milligram Motrin. Let me get some rest. I'm just tired. Because, feeling nauseous, no doubt had a concussion, no doubt in my mind.
Right. Part of me thinks the military thinks that Motrin can cure cancer if you just believe hard enough.
Motrin and change your socks.
You have to drink water.
Yes.
It's a couple of Motrin and 2 full 8-ounce glasses of water will cure cancer, AIDS.
Drink water, change your socks,
dementia.
take the Motrin.
Sure.
Yep. And
COVID.
So I ended up taking the Motrin, laying down, tried to eat something, made me sick. So I was like, oh, I'm just tired. It's whatever date, no big deal. And sure enough, the next day, like mission, I'm like, all right, cool. Still kind of like wobbly, still like equilibrium's all jacked up, but I'm like, it's November, it's cold, it's rainy. Maybe it's just a touch of the flu. Who gives a shit? Well, right back out, we go to this, we're going to the White School, and it's a big school that got converted to like apartments. It's about 7 stories, and it's down at the very end of a long road. There's nothing to your left and right, really. It's just this big ass building down there. And at the time, the Chestians were really big. The Chestian snipers were coming in like contract killers. They were coming into Ramadi and just shooting and killing whoever, they were supposed to kill.
Right.
And you knew that they were there because they would be walking down the street during the day in a black Adidas tracksuit with tennis shoes. And you're like, okay, this, like everyone else is wearing the traditional garb, and this guy's in a Adidas tracksuit. You're like, like, I wonder what he's doing. And,
I just think of the meme that says we could stop this war in Russia with one sanction, and that's if Adidas was sanctioned against shipping tracksuits to Russia.
Yeah, because everyone, and sure as shit, he's walking down, but he never had a weapon, so you can never prove like that's who it was.
No, they're smart as fuck like that.
Yeah,
like
and
I'm wearing
really,
tracksuit,
really
bro. I am fine. I just drive BMW. It's okay.
And they have the Dragunov sniper rifle. I mean, they're legit with it. Like we did a few counter sniper missions, like trying to fight him, and we went cat and mouse round and round with him for about 3 weeks. And he never got us, and we never got him. But as soon as we took that right, because I was the point guy, as soon as we made the right toward the school, and I'm like, okay, all of a sudden you hear, and this sounds I still don't like to hear this sound unless I'm looking at someone doing it, the racking of a bolt action rifle. You just hear it loud as echoing through the building. And I'm like frozen. And the guy behind me is like we call it melt, where you like slowly just try and like blend in and get as low as you can. But I'm like frozen. And I'm like, okay, like no big deal. We start, don't hear anything. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, my wife had just sent me a laptop so we could keep our notes instead of handwriting all that, the sniper like intel reports that we had to do. So we would just type it on the laptop and, take it back to intel guys and be like, here you go. Well, I had the laptop, and right behind the laptop was my my Camelback. Took a few steps, boom, heard the recoil. All of a sudden, nothing down the back, just gushing. Not knowing, I'm like, oh, I was like, I just got shot. Feeling all that liquid and all that stuff going down my back and my legs. And I'm like, oh. So I fall over because it knocks me down, thinking I'm bleeding. And the guys, pull me back. And the bullet went through, punctured through the Camelback and wedged halfway into the laptop. And without that laptop, like that's what stopped the bullet, and all that liquid was just the water that rushed down the back of my leg, thinking it was blood. And I'm like, oh,
dude, your wife saved your life.
Yeah. On a few
wife
occasions.
Saved your life. Like no shit, legit. Your wife saved your life.
Sending that like laptop, and we got it, back in 2005, so you could get them for, really cheap off, Craigslist and things like that. It was just one of those little shitty things. And I'm like, wow. And it literally
Craigslist saves lives, people.
And stopped it barely in the laptop. I mean, it was just that close. And yeah, we had the sappies and all that other stuff, but it was just, that was creepy. And God, I don't know
how do you wrap your head around that? Like, I'm honest, like I'm asking for the audience, because let's face it, the three of us have been in situations where we've had to try and wrap our head around, I should have fucking died.
Yeah.
Like I should be dead. What's that? Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction. We should be dead. Like that was an act. We should be, those bullets passed through us. John and I have talked about this. It's been a theme on this show. And I don't know what our listeners, I don't know what our guests, I don't ask anybody who comes on the show about their religious beliefs. I'll just tell you, I believe in God. I believe in divine intervention. I've seen it firsthand. Yeah. There are times where you can do nothing but process the fact that you should be dead and you are not.
Yeah, for sure. And that was definitely one of those times. And I'm just like, wow, how is this? Like, I mean, how does this laptop, a piece of crap, little thin thing, stop that close to being like game over? I mean, who knows?
Was it 7.62?
Yeah, the Dragunov.
Fucking a nasty round.
It's not even like, it was 7.62 by 59, like the bigger one. It's the bigger one, right?
Yeah, it's the big Dragunov round that they shoot through that thing, and I'm just like, whew. And of course, oh, you're not hurt, you're out of water, but we got a bunch of other water, so we're good. Let's keep going. And
7.62 by 51 or 7.62 by 54R. So that's a big fucker. Like that's a bigger bullet. Than a 308.
That's probably going to go through without something slowing it down. That's probably going all the way through.
No, yeah. You, the person next to you, maybe the person next to him.
Yeah. Not if you have a Camelback and with full of water. Plus,
not if your wife sent you a
laptop.
That's your wife sent you like a laptop plus a +3 laptop with the armor of love. Like fucking Dungeons and Dragons. Like she had it blessed by a priest and shit.
For sure. And it's so crazy. And you go through events like that, and you go through those close calls, and you're just like, wow, like, yeah, I mean, concussions, IEDs, whatever, but you're like, man, what is going on? And what kills me is and I was telling Tom Chuck about just listening to the major that you guys had on part 2 or whatever. Literally, I just listened to that last night, and I was like, oh, okay, perfect. Right where he's talking about in Sangin, like been there 500 times at least in 7 months. But it's not so, and this will sound weird to some, but I would rather I can justify something happening to me, another, service member, left or right, whatever, like in a combat zone. Like there's so many variables, something is going to happen. It's just, there's no way around it. But when it happens to the little kids that are there, that's what I think pushes me over the edge more than anything else. And I'll never forget this little girl. As weird as this is going to sound, I'll never forget this little girl the rest of my life. And we were in her house. Her dad was super smart, super polite. He loved us because, we would go in, we wouldn't destroy his house. We would take all our crap with us, and we wouldn't mess with them. We'd let them do their thing. He had 2 wives, bunch of girls. The guys over there are pimps. They've got wives and kids and like all that stuff.
They don't value women the way that Westerners value women, period.
No.
Or children.
Yeah,
period.
not at all. And he had this little girl. She was probably 7. We'll say 7. And one night I'm on the guard post. I've got the saw, the claymore clackers that we put on the doors in case someone tries to bust in. We're going to blow some claymores. And that was part of our defense.
Charlie's in the wire.
Just wow. And hopefully we'd never have to detonate one of those inside a house because, like,
oh God,
hearing be damned, like game over.
Say goodbye to your yeah.
But
the overpressure.
There was a noise behind me, and I'm like, man, did someone sneak in? So I spin around with the 9mm and point, and there's this little girl holding this raggedy blanket, this stuffed animal that looked like it'd been through like
more tours than you
better
have.
Days. Yeah, like this bear is beat to shit. And I'm like, oh, put it down. And I'm like,
yeah, she had Winnie the Fuck, not Winnie the Pooh.
And I'm pointing. I'm like, go back in there. And they brought us this big chunk, like king chairs that we could sit in, so we're not sitting on the floor. And I'm standing there, and she all of a sudden like climbs up into the chair, lays down, covers herself up with a blanket, goes to sleep. And I'm like, oh, well, fuck, guess I'm not sitting down. That's fine. No big deal. Well, the morning comes, she goes back in with her family. We stay there another day. And we leave, and we're going to use the house about 6 weeks later. We go back, and we're all like, man, this is going to be cool. This house is awesome. These people are great. They let us, they try and feed us if we want to eat. But, a lot of times I'm like, no. You guys have enough for you guys. Don't worry about us. We'll take care of ourselves. Right. We go into the house, and here comes the dad. He's limping. And we're like, man, maybe, but who knows? I mean, who knows what could have happened? Could have gotten a car wreck, like wrecked his donkey, whatever. And he, like just super somber, like he just came back from a funeral, and we're like, where's the rest of your family? And he just kind of looks at the ground. We're like, oh no, hell no.
Fuck, right.
And I was like, well, get who you can into the room. And he does. And we're like, where's the little girl? Dude just starts bawling. And we're like, man, did something like happen? Trying to justify, man, what could have happened? And we're like, what happened? What's going on? 2 days after we left, the Taliban showed up because they found out he let us use his house, which he didn't have a choice when we were going to use his house anyway.
Yeah. Can we use your house?
Yeah.
We're using your house.
Yeah, we're using your house anyway. And so sure enough, they showed up, broke the guy's knee, essentially beat the guy,
Jesus. Shot
one of his wives, and took that little girl out into the street and executed her because they let us use their house. For us, instantly, we're like, oh my God, this is our fault. We're going to leave the house tonight. We're going to call in saying we're compromised. We need to go somewhere else. We go back, and we're all just like, what the fuck? But even to this day, me and some of the guys who are there she'll get brought up, be like, man, you remember when this happened? And I'm like, yeah. When you first come back, all I could do, drink, sleep, work, drink, sleep, work.
Right.
Like there was no socializing. There was no, let's go out to the restaurants.
You don't socialize that.
No.
That's not something you socialize.
And even talking to people, they're like, they don't even know what to say. They read the book and they're like, we have questions, for you about certain stuff. I was like, don't ask about this. And don't ask about that. It's in the book. Read it. It details it out. But I was like, that's one of those topics that's just like,
Well, if I might, I would like to maybe address it for you because I'll say the quiet part out loud. I'm retired and I've I've already been a victim of cancel culture. I don't give a shit. I'm here to speak about the reality of it. And the reality of it is, if you go back to Vietnam and some of the atrocities committed in Vietnam, you go back to World War II, some of the atrocities committed in World War II, you go back to any war, and you are going to find atrocities committed, right? That's just the way war works. However, there are some quote unquote atrocities that were committed in the name of the right thing to do. And I'll say this, for guys like me, and I won't speak for Chris and Chuck, they can speak for themselves, but for guys like me, if that had happened to me and I were in that situation, I can tell you right now, my gut instinct would say, we are going to go and find those motherfuckers, and we're going to fill them so fucking full of lead they can use their dick for a pencil. And if we happen to be able to torture them before they expire, so much the better. And the actual torture, the bringing demons home, the kind of nightmarish aspect of it comes from the feeling of not being able to go and punish the evildoers. Because in war, there's two kinds of soldiers. There's the soldiers that have a code and the soldiers that don't. Just like there is on the streets with cops and gangbangers. The old school gangbangers, they knew if you weren't in the game, you were untouchable, right? You don't go after women. You don't go after children. You don't go after families. It's cops and gangbangers, and they fight because the cops are in the game. The gangbangers are in the game. The drug dealers are in the game. People in the game are fair for their fucking taking. But anybody outside of that, you don't touch. That was the honor. That was the code. That was how warfare used to work. When soldiers met on a battlefield, stood in the middle, shook hands, went back to their neutral corners, and then charged each other and tried to kill as many of the other people before they got killed. That's how it worked. So when you have evil, and I mean fucking evil motherfuckers like this asshole, who comes in and kills a guy's wife and 7-year-old daughter for giving soldiers refuge, that is not warfare. That is fucking evil. Yeah. And the frustration and angst and knot in your stomach that is created by not being able to say, motherfucker, you deal with me. You be a man and you face me. Because guess what? I will hit back. But we can't do that as much anymore. We can't do that. We can't execute vengeance, which is in our current parlance is what we would call that. I call it justice. I call it, no. They killed a fucking 7-year-old girl. They don't deserve to exist anymore. And I don't give a shit what it takes or how many lives we lose. They're fucking dying, period. Now, that's me.
Yeah. No, and I 100% agree. And we were just so, like all of us, even to this day, we're just like, man, like, because like you said, there was no
retribution.
Yeah, there's no retribution whatsoever, which led to not, well, one of my...
Let me ask you this then, real quick. Do you think that had your squad been able to legally, morally, rules of war engagement, if you had just mounted up and hunted these bastards down and killed them and then gone back to your base, do you think you'd sleep a little easier today?
Oh, I'm sure. But and then, like you said, a perfect example is like they all dress the same, they all look the same. So the same problem like Vietnam guys had. I mean, you go into a town and you're like, you look shady, but you could just be a farmer. Oh, it turns out that you're like the leader of the whole group. Right. You know what I mean? And it's just like, and it's so hard because then every day you hear about, a guy getting IED, getting blown up, someone getting hurt, someone getting sent home early, just for whatever reason. And you're like, and it builds. And so we get back in 2006 and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do good. Back to 29 Palms. Woohoo! No real big transition, desert to desert. We're good. This will be easy. Well, about 6 months of not sleeping, drinking every single day, like never going out, never doing anything. I'm like, you know what? I need to go back to Iraq. and seek vengeance or that kind of thing. And I told my wife, I was like, I've got
unfinished business.
And the day comes to redeploy, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, like, why am I going to be happier over there? But it's weird. You get off the plane and you're like, like, this is where I'm supposed to be. It's the weirdest feeling that, like, I've tried to describe to people. I'm like, you just feel like you're home, and like, yeah, but you're getting shot at, like bombed, IED'd. I was like, yeah, but it's easy. Like, life is easy over there. It's either going to happen or it's not. You're going to get up, do the same routine over and over and over again for 7 months to a year. And it's easy. Like, that's easier than being home, trying to sleep, trying to function as a normal citizen, if you will,
right?
In life. It's easier
because you know what's happening and you're not there, and not being there feels like a betrayal.
Yeah. Like, you should be there with the guys. You may have never served with them up to this point, but it's like, oh, you know what? These guys are young. This is their first deployment. Let's go that route.
Right.
I think it has something to do with you feel more in control over there because you feel like you control the outcome better. But when you're back home and you're closed off with your own thoughts, you lose all sense of control because you're kind of like in the passenger seat to everything else that's going on.
Yeah, you're at other people's beck and call. You're at their. I'll say this, and we'll talk about this at the end of the episode. But I'm changing careers right now because after 10 years post retirement of trying to make it in a normal civilian world, I've discovered I can't. Like, I'm not built for it. I'm just not. I can't say the things that are supposed to be said, act the way things are supposed to be acted out. If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you the God's honest truth. And if that upsets you, that's too fucking bad.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a huge part of military, law enforcement, firefighters, people in public safety trying to transition into the civilian environment is we were forged in a fire of tell the truth or die. And now it's backstabbing, duplicitousness, like, you're like, whoa, motherfucker, what is happening? And so it's more comfortable being back with the people that hey, I may get shot, but at least these motherfuckers are telling the truth.
Yeah.
At least I know who my enemy is and I know who my ally is. When I come home, I could be at a party talking to somebody and they're fucking smiling to my face and thanking me for my service. And then when they fucking turn around, they're like, fucking baby killer.
Yeah. And
we'll go for it.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and the funny thing you say that is, and people don't understand this, but, because everyone's like, thank you for your shirts. Thank you for the, and I was like, in my mind back then, it was, don't thank me for doing this, whether you're thankful or not thankful, like that's between you and whoever. But to me, you go by, oh, thank you for your service. You're telling me, thank you for you going over there dealing with that, so we don't have to, and my kid doesn't have to. But then as I progressed through the time and getting up to the point of writing the book, I'm like, you know what? Maybe that was the point. So they don't have to experience what I've experienced. Right. They don't have to see what I've seen, so they can live a happier, healthier life. They don't have, no one wants to see that stuff. No one wants to see a guy blown up. No one wants to see kids killed. No one wants to see any of that stuff. But, initially I'm like, man, especially in 2006, we'd go up to 29 Palms. We'd hit the beach, go to Malibu, Long Beach, and they had all those crosses on the beach. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. They were
all that stuff was happening in 05, 06, 07. And I would see that. And they're like coming up to me, not knowing who I am, but they're like, oh, sign the petition to end this. And they got all these crosses. And I'm like, just fuming. My wife's like, oh God, he's going to jail. He's going to jail. He's going to jail. And I would just turn it and walk away. And I'm like, you know what? You have the right, but don't use it as a thing that just kills me. Like, don't use your oh, I'm going to protest this because I have no idea.
Don't protest on my behalf.
Yep.
Don't protest on any of those dead soldiers' behalves, because guess what? they fucking signed, they knew what they were going. You dishonor their memory by trying to say that their sacrifice was in vain and this war is bullshit. No, fuck you. You don't get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the one part of it that I just could not stand. But thankfully, and then each deployment I would come back, be like, my wife would call it, like Sybil, like all those different,
yeah.
She's like, man, you are Sybil.
That's an old ass reference right there.
Yeah. Every time you deploy, come back, it's a new you. And
y'all look up
like,
Sybil, the movie or the book. It's fucked up. It's a woman with 17 personalities.
Yeah. And a lot of guys come back and they're like, one day they're happy, 1 hour they're happy, next they're sad, next they're pissed off and they want to destroy shit. Next it's such a crazy, crazy cycle of events for sure. And it's just,
I've been fully retired for 8 years and my wife is still dealing with, and now better so because I'm able to articulate and she's able to understand. But yes, I still have those. I still have those violent mood swings between apathy and rage. And she listens to a lot of stuff and a lot of YouTube and a lot of political and crime and she'll tell me about this and I'll just go, yeah, I'm not shocked. What the fuck do you want me to say? Yeah. And then she's like, well, I'm like, okay, that's great. I appreciate the fact that you understand now, but can we please stop talking about it? Because I'm about to Hulk out.
Like I don't need to rehash it. Like you don't need to keep rehashing it. You don't need to think about what I went through and I damn sure don't need to think about what I went through. And it's just like, and it's crazy though.
But we honestly do. And the wives that like, don't be a fucking jackass. You have a wife for a reason. You gotta indoctrinate her. You gotta talk to her. Don't do it. Don't dump on her. Don't fucking drop it all at once. It's not a fucking carpet bombing, right? But like, it's like poison. You have to ingest enough poison to make you sick, but not enough to kill you over a long period of time. And that's what we did as cops, as soldiers. We ingested a little bit of poison.
Service members.
No, yeah, it's airmen, seamen. It's not enough to kill you. It's just enough to make you sick. But here's the thing. We have been inoculated. We have those immunities to the poison. So if you try and give your loved ones a dose of that poison that you're capable of, you'll kill them.
Yeah.
That's it. So there is a fine art of, if you want to share, you should, you can. And sometimes that's why shrinks are the best, because shrinks are like immune to all poisons because they just don't ingest it. They listen to it without actually taking it in. However, family members, loved ones, they do take it in. Friends, family, the people that care about you, the fact that they care about you means they do take it in. So be careful how much poison you feed them. Don't say, I can't give you poison. I can't give you poison. I can't give you poison. Now here's a keg of poison. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, Chris, I totally know where you're coming from. And I know a lot of our listeners and the audiences that have feeling those feelings are going to understand where you come from, where it's easier to be at work and, than it is to be at home. Cause you're not thinking, you don't have to think about anything other than the task at hand, and you have more control over everything, and totally get the whole spectrum of moods and things like that. I mean, we've lost friends over it because they just don't understand what it's like to be in one, law enforcement, or two, in the military. And they just don't understand when you talk about certain things or they ask your opinion and you give a straight blunt answer, and they're just like, they get upset about it because you gave the years of experience of dealing with assholes and shitheads and people who are pieces of shit. And they're like, well, that was mean. You're like, you have no idea.
Fuck you. That was not mean.
You don't understand.
You want mean? I'll fucking give you mean. Right. That's not a healthy attitude, but that's how we feel.
But I totally understand where you're coming from. And I think it's going to resonate really well with a lot of the listeners out there.
So tell us about your book, because as we're closing it, we're running a little bit short on time, and I want to make sure you get enough time. So tell us about the book.
Okay. And if I can also,
you can do whatever you like, Van.
There's a really good friend of mine. He was a Navy corpsman in the initial pushes of Fallujah.
Oh God.
His name is Shannon Book. He lives up here in Austin, Texas, and he's got his own original music. He was part of the band Vetted, and now he's starting up his own band. And I told him that if you guys were cool with it, that I would definitely, if anyone wants to support his music, every dime that he makes on his music goes to Suicide Awareness, PTSD Foundation. He doesn't keep any of it. It all just goes to those different foundations to help
I'll
soldiers.
go you one better, Chris. If you call him and you get his permission and then you send me the song, email me the song, show me where I can download it, I will close this episode with one of his songs.
Well, is one of his songs Karma or Time Away?
It's not Shannon Book. One of them, and it's really kind of a one of his rock songs that I really like, especially to work out to, is "No Man Gets Left Behind" by Shannon Book, and then the other one is and he 100% would allow anybody to play his music to get his name out there.
Oh shit, he's right here.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's called "Not Alone."
Not Alone. We'll end the show with it.
If you listen to that song, it's kind of like you're gonna be like, oh, and anyone who's been through anything it's gonna be like, oh shit, it's one of those songs you're like, oh, but great music. So anyone out there that's listening to this, go check it out. All proceeds go to the different foundations and things like that. So, but the book, got out of the military, all these concussions, TBIs. It freaked me out because I was trying to lose certain memories, which maybe that's a good thing. But a lot of the events and details that I could remember, this leaf was blowing, Coke can down the road, that kind of creepy detail that I put into the book, I was starting to forget. So I'm like, oh, you know what? I need to write this down. And so I started banging out this book, and I'm like, you know what? Like Chuck said, it's called Terror to Triumph. It's basically a book that outlines time as a cop, the different deployments, coming back, dealing with just drinking all the time, the PTSD, going on recruiting duty, trying to, balance, the drinking with trying to be a recruiter. And then, going through some of the surgeries, as you stop doing stuff, your body's like, haha, you know what, you beat me up like a damn merry-go-round. Now I'm just done. So, the back surgeries, the sinus surgeries, things like that. A few of the surgeries put me in a serotonin where I woke up in ICU in a bag of ice because of they were about to check me for brain activity because my body's just like, nope, fuck you, I'm done. I don't want to play this game anymore. So, and finally got out. And so I sat down, wrote the book. And weirdly, it's been out since October. They've done a press release, and as of when was it? Maybe the end of December. So about a month and a half after it was launched, I know there's about 300 and something books sold, which no one really knew about it besides just the general social media. But the weird thing about it is, even though they're with you, or not with you, but they're family, friends, things like that. My family's read the book and they're like, oh my God, I had no idea what you were going through. I was, and they actually have apologized to me and my wife. They're like, we had no idea what you guys were dealing with. We were so caught up in our own shit that we didn't even stop to think what was going on. Cause we just saw you oh yeah, let's come to my brother got married, showed up. Let's drink kegs, woohoo, party, did it. And really, that was right after that Ramadi deployment. And I was like, oh, I do not need to be here. I don't want to be around 10 people, let alone, family. So they're reading this and they're like, oh my God. And other friends of mine who deployed with me have bought the book. Oh, this looks like a good book. Reading the back of the book about, the different things and transitioning from PTSD, lowest point of the life, wife attempted suicide. Thankfully, she didn't. She was able to wake up. My own stuff, and then getting out. Medical doctors are like, yeah, TBIs, your brain's all fucked up. You're not gonna have a sustained marriage. don't worry about ever doing college or getting an education because it's not going to happen. And just if you're going to be functioning like citizen, that would be amazing. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck you guys. Watch this. Ended up getting my master's degree with a 3.9 GPA. Ended up getting a B. So I ended up surpassing that. Wrote this book in a full career. Wife and I have been together 22 years now. So like all the doctors are like, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. My thought is, you know what? Read the book. Yes, you can. If I can do it, anyone can do it. And that was the whole point of the book. And some guys have bought the book and have told me, man, I bought this book to see if, to unload some of my own stuff. Cause you're talking about the deployments I did. And like, shit, like they didn't put the connection. They're like, oh my God, you wrote a book. And so now they're actually getting better. And I've had a few guys read the book and be like, you know what? And, maybe a month after the fact, they've told me, they're like, yeah, we're at the VA getting, some marriage help. We're trying to save the marriage, trying to save this. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't care if I sell 1 book or 10 books. Like if it helps somebody else live a better, more fulfilled life, perfect, mission accomplished.
Right.
And
so tell us the name of the book, and we've got a special cool surprise for our listeners. But go ahead. How can people get the book?
The book is available on, which this blows my mind, but it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart.com, and then the big one where I'm guessing you're going with a discount code, readerhouse.com is the name of the main website.
And what's the book called?
Terror to Triumph.
Terror to Triumph. Okay.
And it's and if they go on readerhouse.com and they enter the code FF save the number 10, it will give a discount off the total price of the book. So if anyone wants to go out there and purchase it, enter that code in checkout, and it will save you a couple bucks.
10% on the book. Okay.
10% on the book.
I'm looking forward to reading it. I honestly am.
And it's on Kindle as well. And I'm in the process. I'm about halfway done with doing the audiobook version too. So that's going to be out as well.
Is it your voice?
Are you reading it?
No, I was going to, but I was like, you know what? I don't want to. But the person that I found to do it is really.
Okay. I was going to say, if you haven't hired anybody, I will volunteer to do it for free.
And thankfully, once it's done and it's launched, they're going to put it on Audible, what I guess was the main audiobook website.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what's so great about this. I love your guys' show. I've listened to a bunch of them, and to be able to come on and just put it out there and bullshit with you guys for an hour or two. It's just been great. So I can't thank you guys enough.
We appreciate it. And we always let our guests dedicate their episode to a fallen brother or sister, officer, firefighter, or veteran. So we want to give you this opportunity, Chris, to dedicate your episode to whomever you'd like. So
okay.
It's up to you.
And this one, we're still really good friends with his widow, a guy named Trevor Cook. He was a helicopter crew chief, and when we returned from the deployment in 2010, they sent me on recruiting duty, and within 3 months, we get a phone call. Wife's in hysterics. They're out doing a training thing, going to land up on a helicopter pad overlooking the Pacific Ocean, I-5, right through Camp Pendleton. Dynamic rollover, spun the back end around, rolled the helicopter down the hill, crushed them, killed them. So weirdly, it was him and I were the last two crew chiefs to fly for our squadron before turning it over to the next squadron. So coming back, it was really weird. So definitely that guy, it was just horror. I mean, again, expected in war, you don't expect to hear about it.
Peacetime hard.
Yeah. And to find out that he was killed in a helicopter accident, and they named a helicopter after him, and no matter what happens, his name's always going to be on the helicopter, and things like that. So
just like lunchbox at the chow hall.
Yep. So
and I mean, let's face it, that's what we do. We honor our dead.
Yeah.
Have to
For sure.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, rest easy, brother. We got it from here, as we say with everybody. And I'll say that I'm not super excited to hear that your dedication was about a helicopter pilot, because as fans of the Locker Room and people who listen to the Locker Room know, I'm just about to start helicopter pilot school this summer. But it is what it is. I honestly, I've retired 8 years ago, and I like you try your hand at something that's, just regular, good old fashioned corporate work like everybody. And I've realized after I've had exactly 2 jobs post retirement from the police department in 8 years, it's just not, it's not for me. I can't kiss ass. I can't like say the things that you're supposed to say. I was dyed in the wool with honesty, and, so if those of you that want to support that, if you're listening to this in spring of 2022, we've got a GoFundMe going to help me pay for the helicopter pilot school, because let's face it, that shit is expensive, and I'm a retired police officer trying to support a disabled wife and 2 kids. So we would really appreciate the help. You can go to GoFundMe, go to our website, go to our social media and find that out. I just thought it was a little, you were telling me about the guy you want to dedicate. I'm like, oh God, don't tell me. I'm so glad my wife doesn't listen to this show right now, because I finally got her to agree to let me go to helicopter pilot school after 2.5 years. And I'm not letting her take that back before I get to go. But Chuck, sure, how else can people support us and find us?
First of all, I want to thank Chris for coming on. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you, Chris.
And if you want to come back on and share some more stories,
anytime,
you can come on, message me, email me, and be like, hey, I'm ready to come back on, and let me know. Or I'll contact you in a couple months or something like that. Cool. But it'd be, if you want to come back on and you like, I need to talk about this, I want to get off my chest, or, I just want to help other people, just shoot me an email. Cool. At the same email we've been talking on. And then I'll get right back to you. And for everybody else, go to our Instagram, and that's War Stories Instagram, War Stories Official on Instagram, and then go to our Facebook page. And if you have Facebook and you don't have Instagram, or you have Instagram and don't have Facebook, there's a link in the bio. Click that link and you can go into it. It has a lot of information. It has links to website, YouTube, all that good stuff. There are other socials, as well as if you're looking to come on as a background, get your background done, or you're looking to come on to the job in law enforcement, there is now a link to Ken, who has been on the show multiple times.
The background whisperer.
He's a background investigator by trade, and that's his business now. So you can go there, you can click on that. There's a wealth of information on there.
There should be a link to Third Watch Apparel, right?
Watch 3?
Watch 3 Apparel, yeah.
I don't have the link yet, no.
Oh, the link is not up yet, but we're working on a link for Watch 3 Apparel, because you guys, we love Watch 3 Apparel. Watch 3 Apparel is great. They help us by making our shirts for us, and they're great quality shirts, but also Watch 3 Apparel has their own line of merchandise that's all based on the owner of the company is involved and has had a career in law enforcement in Southern California, and his great, I mean, these designs are awesome. I dig them, but they're all based on that culture of hard charging Southern California law enforcement that really does capture the spirit of what we do as police officers and firefighters and veterans, but his specific perspective is for law enforcement. So support Watch 3 Apparel, which helps support us.
And when you go to Watch 3 Apparel, enter in the code War Stories, get a discount there, and it'll just be in the main coupon section on War Stories. And Rudy is a great guy; he's the owner of the company. But don't forget, we have a website as well. Go to our website. We still have some Whoopee hoodies up there. We have our shirts. We have patches, stickers. We have 2 patches. We have a patriotic patch, and we also have the FAFO patch, which is a 40 millimeter patch on it. There's also
and
patriotic.
Keep sending us those pictures of you guys wearing the Whoopee hoodies. Those are dope.
Yeah, so go there, help support us by going to our website and buying some gear, and then like and share our stuff on the Instagram and the Facebook. And if you ever forget and you want to come onto the show, it's booking.warstories@gmail.com. And if you forget that, click the link in the bio. There's direct links right to there. It's very easy. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah. And I'll say, Chuck, I'm glad your guts did not bubble up during the taping of this show.
Oh, yeah,
we were able to get through it. And Chris, seriously, again, Chuck said it. I'll say it again. I really appreciate you coming on. You're welcome anytime. This was a good hang, man.
For sure.
And let's face it, Chuck and I can tell you some episodes are harder to get through than others. Most of them are pretty cool, and some of them are really cool. And I would venture to say that both of us would put this in the really cool category. So you're welcome back anytime.
Awesome.
Until our next episode, come home with your shield or armor.
With his gun in his hand, he puts it away, 'cause now he understands.